In Lakesh and Veritas, everyone, we are sending you the frequencies of oneness and truth with honor, respect, and gratitude. That is our attitude. We welcome you to Of the Sun's weekly Suncast podcast, where we cover evolutionary topics focused on expanding ourselves and humanity into becoming the frequency of truth, shifting one's consciousness into seeing through the lenses of oneness. We are coming live from the frequency and elevation of one mind. We have LaOta of the Sun, who is the guiding force and architect of the vibrant organism of the Sun, who provides of the Sunners wisdom and guidance so that they may find the truth and be free. I am Tarvars of the Sun, certified instructor and practitioner of the Sun modalities, and the creative director behind Of the Sun's artwork, programs, and sessions. I greet you in Lakesh and Veritas, LaOta.
In Lakesh and Veritas, which means to release the suffering and to be the truth. And since we're talking about truth, I will call for truth and start our program off with what we all should ask for. Shall we all call for truth? Join me. Call for the truth. Call to see the truth with your own eyes. Call to know what you're looking at and see what is true. Call to hear the truth. Call that the truth may ring in your ears from the radio, the television, your children, your relatives. Let them all speak the truth to you. And call to speak the truth, to have the courage to say the things that need to be said to correct our circumstance and be in the truth. Shall we call for the truth? So that all may see, all of our children, our grandchildren, our relatives, the ones we love, so that they may have the gift of truth. Shall we have nothing less than the truth? So there we have it.
Oh, thank you. The truth is setting me free. I feel freer at this moment. And I hope you all are ready, listeners, to move yourself into balance. Because our topic today, we are discussing the divine feminine principle. And before we do, for our listeners who may not be aware, LaOta has released a new ebook titled Call for the Truth. And this is available on the Of the Sun website. You can find this literally on the home page by scrolling down somewhere on the middle. And the link will be posted in the description. And you can also import this into your Kindle reader for ease of access. So the reason why I'm bringing up this book, Call for the Truth, of course, we are calling for the truth at the beginning. This is the clarion call. And also the idea of the book, Call for the Truth, if we were to compare the writings of the book to music, the book Call for the Truth was composed with heavy tones and harmonics of the necessity of calling for the truth collectively and individually as a salvation for humanity to overcome the darkness that we are all confronted with. And as it pertains to today's topic, there are undertones all throughout this book speaking to the idea of oneness, and more so the idea of the divine feminine principle and the importance of bringing this principle into balance within ourselves as well as collectively within the human experience. So I have a brief excerpt I'd like to share that conveys this idea. So within the book it reads, "Once there was balance. The genders were properly combined. We accessed more power through both of the hormonal lines. The polarities, both binaries, were as equals, as one. These are principles of creation brought forward into physical form." So we're going to set it off there. So what is this idea of divine feminine principle that you're speaking of within the book? Why is this so important for us to bring forth balance? And how does this intertwine with the idea of truth?
Well, let me first express my reverence for the power and the divinity of the divine principle that is not in our world in balance. And then I'd like to explain what that means, this idea of balance. Everything is balance or has the ability to be in balance. Our entire universe Its whole existence is based on its ability to balance itself. The universe is made up of various parts, various abilities, various aspects of consciousness and spirit, masculine and feminine energies. Everything in our universe yearns for balance. We see this in the genders. The universe is made up much like ourselves because everything is a hologram of everything else. In every aspect of us, in every gram of everything, is the whole of it. That's what a hologram is. So if we look at our fingerprints, in the fingerprint is the whole of who we are. If we look at our numerology, the numerology is an aspect, a gram of the whole of who we are. And that applies to acupuncture, it applies to reflexology, it applies to tapping, it applies to every healing modality. It's very easy for healers to see that in every aspect of us is the whole of us. You know, the ancient people knew that if they had your hair or fingernails, they had your whole DNA system. And so now our forensic people do know that as well. So everything holds the whole through its small gram of the universe. So in this universe, there are things that are opposite of each other. For instance, in electricity, there is positive and there is negative. And to create a charge, you need both. In the visual spectrum, there's black, and then there's white, and all that is in between. And these vary in degree by the polarity. It is the same with masculine and feminine. These are two aspects, two polarities of a principle of creation in the same way that electricity puts negative and positive together to get a charge. There is a law that really supports this. It's called the Law of Polarity. It's written about in the most ancient of texts. It is the intimately intertwined aspect that contains both genders simultaneously. The circuitry flowing in the magnetic north to the magnetic south. It moves in different opposing directions in the male body and in the female body. And it is a mirror of each other, a vibrational correspondence that is positive and negative polarity that really works with our planet and the magnetic north and the south pole positions. And we are responding to this greater, it's not just our physicality, it's the planet in our physicality, in the solar system, in the universe. It is larger than male and female. This is a principle. And the aspect of our body that contains the crystals that are iron based, that would rotate a compass, are also the same things that work in our brain to give us internal compasses to navigate. These are the same things we're talking about, the polarities, the north, the south, the negative, the positive, the black, the white. This is the law of polarity, which we can relate and see in all things in nature as the polarities of creation, that when they come together, then you get creation. So we see it in all of nature. We see it in every aspect of nature. So that, does that give you enough?
Yes, that is such a thorough explanation, because you covered the principle and its manifestation on various or all different planes of existence. And that's, from my understanding, how we know that a thing is a law.
Yes.
When you see it everywhere.
Yes.
No one is an exception to the law.
Yes.
Or can escape it.
Now, there are varying degrees, but you're absolutely
Yes.
right that you can see that the principle exists and that within the principle there are variations or occasional changes, but that the basic principle remains the same.
Yes. So you literally covered the principle of gender or polarities spiritually with our energy. As you were saying that, I could see what people in the Far East refer to the yin and the yang, the mental. We got masculine and feminine, left, right brain, in the direction of the way how the thought moves, emotional, and as well as physical, of course, the literal manifestation of male and female. So so clearly it's all over. It's everywhere. We can see it. But how is it that we have gotten out of alignment? Like, where are we not in harmony with this law?
The idea of balance is why we are talking today. It is the circumstance that we find our world in a pandemic, where the whole world is in a prison planet on lockdown, begs for balance. We are on our knees praying, calling, asking to bring balance back. If you look up the history of women, you see there is no real history. We have been erased. We have not been considered. There are nations that still kill baby girls. We are not part of the experience of the world, and this is what a world out of balance looks like. Disease, death, war, destruction, abuse, greed, lying, cheating. These are not the principles of balance. So that is the reason why it is so important that we understand that the universe itself is feminine, and that nothing is born into this world that does not come through a woman.
Cosign.
Yeah, so no matter how much you want to pretend or make believe or chemically test tube something, it is not in its correct place if you do not follow the laws of nature and the natural systems of nature. The intelligence of nature is clear. Nature did not make cell phones that give us brain tumors. Natures do not give us radiation for cancer.
But it did bear fruit that helps us heal from such things.
And so there you have it. And that comes from the Mother Earth, who is informed by the Father, Son, which is very important. With all honor and respect, it is necessary that both components be here, but we have been existing for millions of years without the feminine aspect. If you go to look up powerful women in history, you will find a pathetic offering that is not justified to the intelligence that is embodied in the nurturing aspect of a female. The human embryo has approximately 250 female genes for every one gene that gave birth to a Y. So XX is female, XY is male. After conception, the human embryo is 14,500 parts female to 1 part male. These are real scientific facts that cannot be refuted. Our star ancestors, from whom we got our life, their cells were X chromosome based. They were all female. With no X chromosome, no life will exist. The cell will die. With no Y chromosomes, the life will still live. So this is to show you that you must have the feminine component. You must have the X in the equation.
So what I'm taking away from what you're sharing from the scientific aspect of this, because again, universal law, as above, so below, we can look to the genetics and the physicality to understand the higher principles because they're pervasive. Literally, women contain both the potential of male and female offspring, or giving off male and female. And clearly, men alone are not capable.
Well, And there's this aspect too that people need to also remember is that every man is 50% a woman.
Yes.
It takes two, so he is half his father and half his mother.
That's actually an idea I noted. I want to get to that
Yeah, so
soon.
that's significant. That's a significant idea to understand. The universe and the source of the universe are feminine in origin. Neuter, something that is not masculine or feminine, doesn't give birth to anything. The masculine does not give birth to anything. Only the feminine can give birth appropriately and according to the laws of nature. And it can do so without a masculine counterpart. So this is very clear, and this is really the idea today, is to show there's reason why we must have balance. It is fundamentally necessary for life itself. We can't pretend it away, as can't erase our history and destroy all of our books and then pretend we didn't exist and then make artificial intelligence to replace us or test tube babies. You won't get what creation gave us as a result.
So as I look at this, what you're sharing, again, to finish my thought about this idea of the X and XY chromosomes, because that's so key. Again, it's not necessarily that there is, and this is for men who are listening, by the way, because we do have men or women who are thinking about, so I don't need a man. And that's what the feminist movement looks like, where it's an overcorrection of because of the imbalance. So there is a necessity, as you mentioned, the idea of the sun sending the information, sending the rays down to the earth. But it's not like the sun in and of itself is sprouting vegetation everywhere.
It's two polarities to make the godhood or the divinity of the creation. The two polarities together make the creator. So the sun with the earth create life, which then makes it, by definition, creator.
So I'm seeing that law and the beauty within nature, and I'm seeing this visual, man, what if we were in balance? How much fruit would be bared? How much beauty would we be able to give off to this planet through the appropriate balance and relationship of both male and female, whether it's within our own self, because as you say, both polarities exist within us, and working as a male and female together in union. So this is really got me marinating right now, thinking of a new world, new thought.
Well, I'd like to share with you the symbolic blueprint of creation. Like the tree of life. The tree of life is a well-known esoteric understanding of elevation and growth spiritually. And it shows us that the masculine energy is always represented by a straight line, and that the masculine takes the straight line to get to its direction. There is no deviation. This line helps us to visualize the other important and honorable characteristics of our other polarity. The analytical, the masculine energy is characterized in divine gender, as it is the divine gender as well, as highly analytical. A plus B equals C, this type of thinking. The masculine energy is the giver of sustenance, as well as the giver of its own flesh, sperm. The masculine energy also has will and the ability to have power to change the minds of others, the ability to influence and to harbor the changes in one's own environment. These are 4 basic chambers of the masculine energy. And it is not all there is, but these are 4 great areas to consider. I would also bring forth this idea that everything spiritually is also literal. Men are designed as givers as women are designed as receivers, where our physical bodies speak to the intelligence of the design in the polarities. That the polarities are not exactly the same, but they work together to bring balance.
Just really on that note, the visual that comes to mind is the physicality of men are straight, like a line. Women are more curvy.
And I'm just about to talk about that.
Go at it, please. Tell us more.
And I think the reason you see that so clearly is you're a sacred geometry
yes,
teacher. And the tree of life, the feminine, is represented by the circles.
Yes. Please, share more. You got me.
And the circles represent the path that bends. The circle is the one true representative of creation, time, and space. It's 360 degrees.
Yes.
Yes, the feminine energy. You want to say something?
Yes, I do. All right, so for those who may be tinkering around with the idea or working on digesting the idea of that we live in a feminine universe, looking at this principle, it hit me harder than ever in this moment. And I've been studying sacred geometry for a hot minute. And the idea of singularity, oneness, which is the symbol of the circle, that's what that represents symbolically and literally. And within sacred geometry, specifically LaOta referenced the Kabbalah and the sacred geometry of that symbol and the straight lines being masculine. So if you look at the flower of life and how its circles all interlace, but it all starts from a circle, which brings to mind womb. You know, 360, everything's contained within it. And it all starts from there.
And this, again, is a hologram of the entire universe. Our universe is spherical. Our planet is spherical. You know, the womb is spherical.
Our atoms, our molecules.
Are spherical. These are principles of the universe and these polarities. And they all have their opposite force that makes them move and yearn and move towards balance. The feminine energy is of curiosity and contemplation, the ability to conceive from nothing, which leads to the ability to create mentally things that may or may not exist.
That was powerful.
It's
the
true.
Ability to conceive from nothing.
I have done it many times.
Yes, you have. I was like, wow. Keep going. This is so good.
Feminine energy is also receiving from men, from the universe, and from everything else. Feminine is of love and compassion, the ability to be empathic and to help that which is not you rise up and give. So we can say, we stand beside you and we got your back. We can give you what is not available to you in a straight line.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean the straight lines are not necessary. We see that. These things work together in harmony, and this is how we could sustain our environments. These two principles together would not deforest all of our world. They would not allow it to burn out of control because of the way people think. This is not the energy that would allow babies to be killed because they didn't have penises. This is a different understanding.
I'm having thoughts of a new world right here. I'd like to share. What if in our new world, instead of having just a single president, or even at the lower levels of politics, governors, mayors, it was ran dualistically by male and female.
So you may have seen in ancient pictures Egyptian pharaoh with a woman standing behind the throne.
Yes, running things. I know what it probably looked like to you all with the pharaohs and kings, but I know what's up. But please.
I'm sure that's not too far from the modern day executive assistant.
Yes.
Who takes care of everything in every way, in every matter. So this is something that has been deleted from our world in the west, in the north, in the south, and in the east, and all of the directions of the four winds. Our world has embraced the idea of being fully masculine, and we are fully in the experience of that. It is time for all of us to call back the power of the divine feminine. You can join me now because I'm feeling to call back the power of the divine feminine. Call back your own power. Call back your own balance so that we can, with honor and respect, properly respect the masculine balance. They cannot be properly respected until we are in balance. I think that's very important. When we have not done that, we are left with chaos and stagnation, where the people on our planet are beginning to think the world is flat instead of spherical.
If that is not imbalance to me, I don't know. Okay, no offense to any flat earthers, but based upon, if you look at the universal law and the acknowledgement of sacred geometry, these theories of being on a two-dimensional plane as a three-dimensional being would actually collapse in the face of the law. But this, again, is just clear evidence of living too far in one polarity.
It's true. And it's a distraction to those of us who do not find evolution a myth. It is not a myth that we can evolve beyond this. It's not a myth that we could engage with those from the stars in meaningful, advanced experiences were we in balance. It is not a myth that we could exceed our it is not a myth that we could exceed our highest aspirations. This is a fact. If we had both aspects, both intelligence aspects, we could create things that didn't kill us. We could make houses that were not environmentally toxic. We could make food that would support the bodies of all of the humans on the planet, not just some. This is very important. We're left without balance, there is no eventuality other than self-destruction.
We're going to go ahead and take a break here. This has been delicious. I am being nourished by this information. I hope you all are too. And we'll see you when we return with more of the divine feminine principle. In Location Veritas, with honor and respect.
There is a trajectory where the natural processes of creation are extinguished. This is the goal in a plan to destroy the principle of the feminine. We see it in nature in the history of abuse to Mother Earth, and artificial food and sterilized seeds, and in vitro babies and robotic female companions, and animals being produced without nature. Our reverence and our love for ourselves and nature is what is needed to keep us here. Call for the power of the feminine balance to come forward in our world with unwavering honor and respect to the masculine. Together, planetary balance can be restored. Speak to the consciousness of everything.
In Lakesh and Veritas, everyone. Welcome back to the Suncast podcast, bringing you the truth and nothing less than the truth. And we're talking about the divine feminine principle, the other half of ourselves. Or if you're the physical embodiment, we're talking about you. So we left off on laying down the foundation this idea of the divine feminine principle and the importance of restoring the balance, but also even through science and the universal laws encompassing the human experience, not just the human experience, but the universe in its totality, and the importance of recognizing this within our lives so that we may bring back the balance within our experience. So I want to touch on another excerpt that has really stood out. And the excerpt reads, "The great separation between the divine feminine principles took place, leaving humanity out of balance, reeling in space. The script of the quote-unquote apple was flipped. It was not she that adhered to the deceit and jealousy. It was Adam, who became negatively influenced and accepted a distorted perception of truth. In many other galaxies, worlds were lost. Other civilizations also have fallen victim to this same negative attacking of the polarities of creation. The two together are the law that creates balance." So with reading this, my question is, who was Adam negatively influenced by? Come on, Adam. And if you could paint the picture of the truth of this idea, because literally this goes against everything that we've been taught, although this is taken from the religious idea of Scripture, we can still, I know I can still see that everything has been to damn the woman, she messed us up. But this is speaking that, no, it's the opposite. And if you would elaborate.
The idea is that, yes, the polarities existed in the higher realms before descending into the lower frequencies of Earth, where the distortion and the separation actually took place. And this is where the story flipped. However, we can see through our ability to just see nature, to see the law in effect, that man is a descendant of woman. No matter what the spiritual texts say.
Yes, I came from a woman last time I checked.
Yes.
That is fact.
And the blueprint and the chromosomes tell the tale. DNA is clear and apparent. It is clearly within the DNA that the story has been distorted. There is no way to support the distortion that woman descended from man. We can look at the clarity and the distinction. The confusion that we see in this day and time surrounding gender is part of that distortion, of that original distortion. Now, this many millions of years later, or however many years it was, is part of why what we see in the confusion in our landscape with gender has to do with that very idea of religion supporting that man birthed woman, when clearly to this day men are descendant from women.
Yes. Clearly.
And we can't make that not true. The things that are signaled in our memory are part of the reason why women are so off balance, because they remember who they are in a world that denies it. Identification of gender is based upon law. The physical organism is law. It is all based upon more than just science. The distortions that we see are in the waveform of the things that have been released into the atmosphere that our children are breathing, that are changing and manipulating them, or the soy in our food, or the many, many things that are happening with the food that are affecting the way people feel. People have very real feelings of one way or another, but these things are based upon lies, manipulation, and distortions of their reality based on the first distortion. Darkness is what negative is what influenced in the idea of the snake, the liar. Someone lied about the apple. That's the distortion.
They caught us slipping, man. They got us.
Darkness was put in place so that confusion could reign, and we certainly see confusion. But gender is a matter of law.
Yes.
And this is very important to understand. All life comes from female. Creation is predominantly female. It is clear for all to see. And that this is a very important understanding, because we don't even know the way the human brain works. We hear something, we believe it. We don't even know that what we believe. We are an embodiment of universal principles. We spoke to the consciousness of the women who were extinguished at the time that men became, when they no longer wanted that experience of balance. And this is what the women of extinction said. They had been sent away from our earth plane by mutual consent. They say we are the embodiment of universal principles, composed of the essence of matter created by Source. Our purpose is to birth consciousness. Women were in touch with their intuition, creativity, and spiritual power, utilizing this universal energy to move mountains, to reshape the earth, and all of the consciousness embodied within it. This is magical power held by women and was the essence of the divine feminine energy that moves into view as a threat by the masculine. And we can see that in the history of churches and religions burning women and then stealing their magical powers.
It's fascinating. I'm literally there as you were speaking or reading the excerpt from The Consciousness of Women of Extinction, and how fascinating it is that man has suppressed woman because of the threat of power, but has usurped that power.
Yes, it's very interesting. They've flipped the script. The thing that is the most valuable that we have, they have made it dirty and wrong,
Yes.
and again, have taken it and turned it against us, and then killed us for it and then stolen it.
Yeah, it's deep.
Also, the women of extinction said, as separation among all living consciousness became the predominant way of life, it moved oneness into obsolescence. The consciousness of the masculine fell into ego, control, and illusion, interweaving itself into strands and cords and threads of darkness, believing in falsehood of overthrowing the flow of divine energy, operating in a delusion that masculine can somehow sustain itself without feminine. This understanding became a dictatorship to the cycle of our lives, stepping out of the truth that is aligned with universal law, shifting humanity into centuries of matrixed enslavement, which is quite literal. Physically enslaved because you're out of balance and unable to be strong, to have your strength of the balance. We come back to shift the imbalance of masculine dominance. higher frequencies attached to the consciousness of the divine feminine of love, nurturing, compassion, and creation, shifted into suppression, oppression, and enslavement, moving the feminine consciousness into an illusioned belief that self-sacrifice was the role of a woman, impeding upon the free will of her soul's expression and feminine consciousness. With the major shifts on the earth taking place, we are here to awaken the consciousness of the feminine from its inactive and dormant state. And of the sun is your cheerleader. Reviving its awareness to the sovereignty once held, awakening this truth in every woman, every child, every man, and soul domineered by the masculine way of thought. They say, we are here to restore balance.
Mic drop. Like literally, she put her hands out like, well, you heard it first.
We will be discussing more on this topic in future podcasts. It is our will, and we hope that it is yours, to call back the power of the divine feminine so that we may give honor and respect to all. This is the way. The way is through honor and respect for all.
Before we go, I'd like to, one, give thanks and gratitude to LaOta, the physical expression of the divine feminine, for bringing this information forth. And of course, to the consciousness of women that is assisting us with and navigating with bringing this forth to humanity. And this is very needed, and clearly you all can see I am in full 125% support of this idea. This is the future. Balance is the future. Truth is the future. Alignment with the universal laws and principles. Let's put some respect on it. So may we continue to call for the truth, speak the truth, see the truth, and hear the truth in all things.
So that all may do so. Shall we have nothing less than the truth? Have the courage to call for truth so that you can gain your balance, your power, what is divinely yours.
In Lakesh and Veritas.
In Lakesh and Veritas. Release your suffering and be the truth.